there and welcome to the Labyrinth. If you're new, welcome aboard, and I hope that you find the content useful. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for being part of the journey once again. Today I'm going to be providing some strategy for healing a broken heart and for moving on from past betrayal, especially with intimate partner relationships or actually just any relationship in general. So what I've done is I've actually combined two activities into the one on this video. And the first activity involves what is called reclaiming the heart, and it tends to be very beneficial for people after a really serious relationship betrayal, where they feel that they've had a hole in the heart. The ending has left a hole in their heart and a pain that they don't think they'll ever recover from. So it's actually really good for those people that have survived narcissistic, abusive type intimate partner relationships. The other strategy is really good for people that are trying to move on and they find themselves getting locked in rumination and that whole reflection over the past, whether they could have done things differently and just letting go of a relationship that's come to an end. And sometimes, even if a relationship has been toxic, people can still find themselves ruminating on it and thinking, is there something I could have done better? Or if I acted in a different way, might they still love me? When you do the cord cutting exercise, because that's the other one, you will come to the recognition that actually it doesn't matter if you could have been different because you are who you are. And some relationships are healthy and some aren't. Just a reminder before we get into the exercises, though, or the activities, that when it comes to young children, you wouldn't be cutting your cords on them because obviously you've got responsibilities to them. And when it comes to the cords, this actually can be how we as parents get messages from our children telepathically, that mother's instinct. So yeah, you definitely wouldn't cut cords on children. And I would start with the relationships are the really big problematic ones for you, the ones that you're really struggling to move on with, and that logically and rationally you need to come to peace with the finishing so that you can heal and recover from that relationship, learn the lessons that you needed to learn, and then go into your future with confidence and a greater self-esteem and a better self-value. I would recommend before you start this activity, unless you know immediately of a person, that you go back and you take a look at the friendship and relationship series, because this is ultimately going to help you to identify those people that you wish to remain close to, because they've earned your trust, and those people that you wish to let go of, or certainly that you want to heal any feelings of betrayal with them. And you will know which ones need to be healed first anyway, because these are the ones that are going to have left you with that hole in the heart sensation. Incidentally, I've heard it referred to as people who feel broken spirited and where they're not sure that they can ever recoup the capacity to be able to love again after these kind of breakdowns. Or in some instances, even be able to become the happy person or confident person they were before entering into a relationship, especially with an intimate partner, where they were full of hope and, life seemed very bright until they got with these people, and then they found themselves devalued over a period of time, especially if they're with a narcissist, because obviously the whole point of narcissism really is to grind another person down so that they can feel powerful. You may also start to notice if you've got repeating patterns around you, such as if you found yourself in a narcissistic relationship, do you have other narcissists? Was there a parent who was one? Do you have siblings? Maybe even your children, adult children might be narcissists. And if these people have passed away and shifted to the other dimensions, you can also do the same activity with them by calling on their spirit. So let's say you had a narcissistic mother and you survived abuse and that kind of thing, and you constantly find yourself thinking about your childhood. You can call that person's spirit in and do the same activity with them. Anyway, write the people's names down after you've reviewed it and thought about it and evaluated how you would like to go forward. So spend a little bit of time focusing on, and it doesn't need to be a long time, but just recognizing even if it's just on a rational, logical basis, that actually you are a human. We are all growing. We all do make mistakes at different times. And sometimes we make unwise decisions. And sometimes we may do things that others people consider to be wrong. And sometimes we might do things that don't even meet our own standards. But if we're open minded people to being shown the areas where we can improve ourselves, I consider that's the vital aspect of self-awareness and self-growth. But whatever mistakes that we've made, we, as much as anybody else, deserve to be treated with love and kindness, and that includes you. And in fact, if people don't love you, that's okay, because we're not all the same. The very fact is that they don't need to be malicious or vindictive. And it's the vindictiveness that defines a narcissist from other personality disorders, is because of that cruel edge that they have. And so that, I can't think of a better word to describe it, the cruelty and the vindictiveness that they've extended to you through the end of the relationship, if you like. Nobody deserves to be treated that way, especially you. Just a reminder, if you do the Friendship Circles series, you'll be encouraged to do a moral compass, what we call a moral compass, and also to build your personal value statement. And when you look at these, you can actually ask yourself, within this activity of self-recognition, ask yourself again, within this toxic relationship, how have I been treating myself well? How well will I trust myself in future when I am placed with these kind of people? Can I commit to being my own best friend and taking care of myself, my heart, my emotions? Because I know, you know in your mind that you deserve to be loved, and at the very least to be treated with some decency. And so you can commit to yourself to be selective, take care of your heart, and not discard this beautiful love that you hold in your inner center on people who cannot see, value, or appreciate the gifts that you bring to them. So just spend some time focusing on that self-commitment and building some internal strength for the activities that we're going to do shortly. Now, if you're a believer in spirit or creator or whatever, now's a good time to actually call upon them as your divine support team to assist you with the activity. If you're not a believer, just do the process anyway. The other thing too is, you know what, actually, if you're not a believer, maybe just go through the process of calling and invoking anyway and seeing what will happen, because at the end of the day, if you don't believe, the reality is no harm can be done by calling upon them. Why not give it a shot? Nothing else to lose, as I said. So if you've decided to go as far as reviewing all of your relationships, then it's time to prepare yourself. If not, just proceed if you're just doing it for the one person. But you could prepare yourself. Look at where you might be feeling locked into the past and unable to move forward, or even take a look at those relationships that are becoming very depleting, draining, and exhausting, and identify how far you want to go with this process, because with each relationship you can adapt the heart healing and the cord cutting activities to whatever feels appropriate for you. For instance, as I just said before, you wouldn't cut cords on dependent children. If you've had a romantic partnership that's ended and you're struggling to move forward, whether you initiated the separation or not, then you can aim to fully cut the cords between you, especially if the relationship included abuse of any form. It's in your best interest, just so you know, if you're thinking, do I really want to do this? Of course you do, because it's in your best interest to raise your vibration to allow more love into your aura. And I'm going to give you a scenario for this, right? If you are a survivor of an abusive relationship, particularly a narcissistic one, that abuse is over multiple layers. It's going to undermine and invalidate all of your self-love, your self-respect, your self-worth, right? That is basically why you feel as broken as you do. So the aim of any healing activity is to restore your self-worth and self-love. And basically, just glossing over here a little bit, it's to remind you that whether you were perfect or not as far as your ideals go, no one needs to be abused. Just keep that there. Everybody deserves to be treated with some respect, okay? Now, make a mental note before you commence of who you want on the list. And also, because you're going to make a mental note here, I'm just thinking how to explain this. Basically, you're going to write a list at the end of it of where you see chords, right? Because this is going to have meaning, and we'll talk about this later. Now, if you're into the angels and that kind of thing, you might want to include the angels and do a little ceremony and process before you get started. So when you feel that you're ready, just invoke, as I said, your support team or not. But visualize yourself in that beautiful egg-shaped aura, and fill your aura with this beautiful sapphire blue color mixed with swirls of the pink and green. And then the key to this exercise too is that you've got to be emotionally detached through the exercise. You're going to try and be impartial. So you respectfully ask the higher self aspect of the person who you want to do the relationship healing with and to reclaim your heart. You ask that higher self aspect to present so that you can reclaim your heart. So then you would imagine the person standing directly in front of you, about 3 to 5 meters or further away from you. The image here is not necessarily the best one, but it was the best I could find. And this is because the lady's stance here is actually aggressive, and you don't want to be going into this activity carrying any form of aggression or defensiveness. And when you look at the gentleman here, he's got his hands in his pocket, so he's actually being defensive. So what you would want ideally, if I'd been able to get an image, was just to have two people standing opposite each other, hands by their side, in a non-threatening way, because basically you're meeting as equals and you are asserting yourself in a kind and respectful way. So you would then explain to the person that you would like them to return your heart to you. Now, what I would visualize, or what I would ask, is that the person hand the heart to your guides or your angels, the little piece that they're returning to you, and have your guide or guardian purify it with energy. Get rid of the other person's energy off it before they give it to you. I'm just trying to think what other tips. During the process, right, so as the person hands, actually I'll just tell you the way I've seen it. Okay, so basically the person will reach in and return the heart piece that they've got of yours, hand it over to the guides look at it. By the way, the heart in my experience ended up glowing like light anyway. The guide will clear and cleanse it, return it back to you. You then take it, say thank you very much and appreciate it, and put it back into your own heart chest. Now, when I saw it, just so you know, I didn't have anybody prompt me along as I'm doing with you guys. I'm just saying how I saw it unfold in my own visualization or imagination. Was I actually noticed in the first instance that there was a bit of resistance, that the person was reluctant to hand the heart back, and then I had to get a little bit firmer, which was, I'm sorry you mistake me. When I ask, I'm being polite. I'm actually being quite firm here. I am insisting that you give me back my heart, because you're not caring for it, you're not looking after it, you're not showing it the respect and value that it needs and deserves. And there was kind of the unsaid telepathy thought, if you like, which is, we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way. But I am here to claim my heart back. And when it was returned to me, I put it into my own heart. And this is why I say you can actually get your guides to purify it first. And that's because I went to put it in my heart and I thought, oh my God, it's probably got his dross energy on it. So I have hesitated and then got my guides to purify it before I actually put it into my own heart chakra. And I remember saying that I actually banged on it and knocked on it a couple of times with my hands to put it back in the right place and rub my heart chakra space. Once you've completed doing all of this, don't forget to use gratitude for it, to your guides and angels, and also to thank the person that's returning it. So at this point, you would do an aura scan. This is if you want to continue to the next stage with the cord cutting, which is about relationship completing. God, if I could speak, completion. Okay, the other part of the activity was reclaiming your heart. Now we're looking at cord cutting and relationship completion. So I'm referring to this as aura scanning here, but it's actually not. It is, but it isn't. Okay, in your imagination now, you're going to visualize yourself standing in front of that person still. This image is better if it was full length because you can see there's a non-threatening demeanor, but there's no violation of personal space. Okay, so what you now want to do is take a look at that person that's standing directly in front of you, and in your imagination, you want to have a look. You want to see if there's any cords running back and forth between you, because these cords have got meaning, and we're going to talk about what they mean at the end of this video. The meaning, of course, may only talk about your subconscious thought processes, but they're still worth discussing. If when you take a look, I would be very surprised if there were no cords running back and forth from either you to them or vice versa, because the fact of the matter is that you're doing this activity because obviously you're finding it difficult to move on and you think of them more than what you know to be healthy for you. But anyway, you might... I'm just going to move on to the next slide. We'll talk about it there. So if you haven't seen any cords, you would then close down with thanks, like I said. But if you do see cords running back and forth between you, then you need to pay attention to them. Which part of the body are they coming from, and which part of the body is it going into? So is it you that's sending cords out to them, and where are you sending the cords from? Or is it the other way around? How thick are the cords, right? These are important factors, and just give yourself a little mental jog there to remember these things after you finish the exercise. What else would you, how thick are they? Who's sending them out? Where do they land? Where don't they? So just, it only has to take, honestly, probably about a minute, if that it doesn't take a long time. If this is the first time for you visualizing, it may take you a little bit longer though, but don't get stuck in this activity. Just have a glance. Anyway, once you've identified where these cords run from in your imagination, you will then see yourself with a pair of scissors, beautiful pink bow on them, on the handle, and you'll use these scissors to cut the cords. Now, this is, I say ideally, because people I know that have done the activity have come back to me and said, like, the cords are too thick. In my imagination, a pair of scissors isn't going to cut through them, because everybody's situation is different. But ideally, okay, let's say the cords aren't super thick, they're a bit thin, you can cut through them with the scissors. You could then tie the ends off so that these cords don't rejoin. If the cords are on the thick side, some people said they're almost like a branch or a tree log. With those ones, it's your visualization. Use a chainsaw, right? Just cut through it. Okay, in fact, actually, that would be worth analysing at the end of this. On the other hand, if they're metal, like rods or whatever, like electrical cables, which some people describe, because everybody's different, you do what you need to do to cut through these cords and sever them, because you've decided the relationship is over and you don't want to be dragged into future stuff in the future, because you want to be able to move on healthy and well and raising your vibration. Okay, so in that case, some people have used one of those welding things that the Boilermakers use. Sorry, just a sec, I need to cough. I can't remember what they're called, but it's like the fire, burn through them. You do whatever it needs for you to sever these cords. A blowtorch, that's what it's called. Now, if you're using a blowtorch, then sear the ends so that the cords can't reattach. So let's say that your list included a number of different people and you started with the one that was really bogging you down currently. Okay, so you would do that one. Then you would move on to the next person on your list, and you've already got an idea about what you're trying to achieve here. For instance, if it's a child that is an adult child that's betrayed you, you may not want to cut the cords on the child, but instead just reclaim that part of you that's left feeling like there's a hole in your heart. Another part of that ritual is with your children, actually, if you're reclaiming your heart, you can turn around and say, I'm going to take care of this until you are at a stage of maturity where you're able to treat it with the respect that it deserves and the love and appreciation and value. So we determine who we love and who we don't love, and how much we love them and how much we let them treat us. In regard to emotional cords, or actually I shouldn't say emotional cords, in regard to cords though with adult children, you probably could safely cut those cords because they're quite capable of looking after themselves at this point in time, unless they've got an impairment or disability. Of course, that changes things somewhat. You know, if it was your mum and your mum's now passed away, you can call on her spirit or her higher self to come and you can do that activity with her. You can also do this activity towards situations, which is why I've put this slide up the way it is. So you've got the whole extended family there. There might be siblings that you've got unresolved issues with. There might be work-related conflict. By the way, that little image there, I wish I'd been able to find, I'm talking about the one on the right-hand side with the two men frowning at each other and that little red line. If that line was running straight, I'd call that a cord. Okay, so that's kind of what a cord looks like. Okay, but you can have other relationships that need to be moved on from. It could be your siblings, your extended family. Look at that. I think that might be an educational facility there where somebody's holding up a note. And then you've got the event up the top, which is a tornado that a person might be trying to heal trauma from. Returned veterans with PTSD, they might want to simply write in their preparation a scenario that they keep ruminating on, as long as they're not going to lock themselves into this thing. It could be just combat, or it could be tour of Vietnam or Cambodia or something like that, because they don't want to fall into that whole rumination about the particular thing. So a couple of key words there. Survivors of systemic injustice and survivors of war zones, they might want to send healing to events and situations as well, and to cut cords on it. You would just adapt your invocation or healing request to be sent into healing the pain and grief of the suffering. And but you want to keep lessons learned from the experience, you know, because we need to continue to learn and grow from our experiences. And not all of our experiences are pleasant. They teach us things, and it could be compassion and forgiveness. So it would be retain the wisdom and let go of the pain, I guess, would be one way of doing the invocation. Either way, once you've completed the visualization aspects of this activity, then don't forget to visualize as you're closing out yourself grounding and centering. And you might even want to purify your aura after this entire exercise before you go back and analyze the cords. So I'm putting some links into the description of this video that if you haven't watched, you may want to look at. Now, just another note for people, the uninformed, shall we say, who haven't done this kind of activity before. It is a detoxification, okay? And that's the same with purifying your aura. Now, people that have never done it before, in my experience, I come back to this, they can feel quite depleted or a bit drained over the next 2 days. Generally, I think they sort of come good on the third day. It's been put to me that if they've never ever done it before and they start doing this kind of energy work, it's like they become worn out. And this is because there is a detoxification happening. And sometimes, depending on the situation, I'm thinking specifically of a returned serviceman here who had quite severe PTSD, actually. He was the one that actually told me that, I think it was probably a couple of weeks after the fact, I asked him what his experience was of having the healing. He said it was the bizarrest thing. He said, I felt really, really sick the next day. He said I had really quite nasty gastro, actually. So the point being that gastro is actually a form of purging and detoxification as well. That told me other things about him and what was happening with his energy. But where I'm going with this is it doesn't stick around for a long time. It's just this process, and you wouldn't feel sick enough that you needed to take time off work or anything like that. I would imagine, because this guy had the gastro, that he would have had very thick cords that were well and firmly hooked and embedded. But as I say, each person's experience is individual. So before we step into doing the analysis of the cords that are going back and forth, I want to remind you that this is a subconscious thing, and that the person that you're disconnecting from, if there were cords coming from them to you, it's quite unlikely that they will even be aware that this is happening. So there is no point becoming angry at them or even bent out of shape. This is really just an activity to raise your own conscious awareness, so that you can process and unpack what's going on for you. And also there is this reminder as well that this is my interpretation. This is how I see it, and it might be different for you. This is the symbolism that I rely on. Okay, so the other reminder too for you is that the current cords that you may or may not have are there at some level because you've given permission for these cords to be attached. Some people would call them hooks. If we're actually aware and in touch with ourselves, we're going to recognize that a hook is being made or that a cord is being extended. And so within this entire lesson, if you like, this experience of reclaiming the heart and doing the cord cutting, you're taking personal responsibility for your entire well-being, for your heart, your feelings, your thoughts and beliefs going forward. So this might be a bit of a long one. This is the meaning I gained from the cords, right? Is if there's no cords, that means to me, or signifies to me, that you have both moved on with your lives. Neither of you is ruminating or thinking about each other. There's nothing to stop you, either of you, from moving forward in your lives unimpeded, or there's nothing there, basically guilt or otherwise. It's just you're both completely emotionally disconnected from each other. The thicker the cords are, the stronger the attachment, that despite the separation or moving away, there's a real unwillingness on at least one person's part to let it go. And this is where the direction of the cords is quite revealing. If the cords are from you to them, then you're the one. Okay, so I hate to say this to you, you are the one that is holding on to this and creating discomfort and pain and suffering for you, because you're carrying these internal desires to control the outcome. Okay, there's a level of denial within you that the relationship is over, and you're hoping that you will reconnect in the future, obviously, despite the fact that the relationship is proved to be unhealthy for you. So there becomes this requirement in there that you change your attitude around this relationship. If it's unhealthy and toxic for you, then the cords need to be cut. And I'll explain why at the end of this, so just hang in there, okay? If the cords are coming to you from them, this is going to mean different things dependent on where the cords are attaching. All right, and now I'm going to give it to you. For example, if they have a cord that is coming from them to your heart chakra, then it means that they are draining you emotionally and psychically of clearly your self-worth and feeling good about yourself. So you cut it, right? Because that's undermining your entire self-respect. If it's going into your solar plexus, they are draining you of your confidence, your trust and your faith. As I say, I'm just going to keep repeating, it's not a deliberate or conscious thing, but the impacts of this cord is that it's going to reduce your feelings of hope for the future. So it can result in hopelessness for you. Cut the cord. If it's going into your forehead, they're impeding your ability to be able to see clearly through the situations and potentially perverting and warping your vision. You want to be able to see clearly, hear clearly. You know what I mean? This is part of knowing and understanding and making informed decisions for yourself. If the cord is going into your crown or your brain, they may be attempting to distort and manipulate your capacity to process information. Quite manipulative stuff, really. Now, speaking of manipulation, if the cords are running to the elbows or the knees, this is definitely a case of emotional manipulation. Now, it was put to me a long time ago, and I kind of agree with this. Well, absolutely agree with that, is if the cords are running to your elbows, then there is an attempt to manipulate you emotionally in the current moment to suit their agendas, right? So I don't usually see the elbows and knees with somebody like an intimate partner or a narcissist. I will see it more so within the parent-child relationship or sibling relationships, sometimes with friends that are on their way out, okay? When this emotional manipulation is occurring in the present time frame, it might look like trying to get you to do something that you really don't want to do, that you feel that you can't do, or that if you were to do it, it might compromise your health in some way, shape, or form. I'll use an adult child for an example with children, if you like, in this one. If you don't do what I want, then I'm going to do X. And if you don't do X, then I'm not going to let you do X and Y. And that could be and you won't get to see your grandchildren thrown on as that final blow for you. Whether or not you cut these cords is at your discretion. Frankly, I would, but I'm a bit older, but you might not be ready to do that yet, because you might want to think, you know what I mean? We've all got to think about what kind of consequences are we looking for. And if you cut those cords, have you put in place supports for you to help you remain well and healthy before you cut off an adult child who's blackmailing you with your grandchildren? Knees and ankles, of course, that refers to moving forward from the past. I would perceive this kind of emotional manipulation once again to occur primarily with your children, adult children, siblings, potentially parents. It might even happen with your cousins and your aunties and uncles. And it could be, well, in the past you let me down, and so therefore you need to do X and Y, right? Retribution, if you like, or just basically guilting you out. So this is an opportunity to heal any guilt that you might carry towards the past. And there becomes this conclusion or this inner knowing where you know that the important thing for you to be able to go forward is actually to free yourself from guilt. Because I mean, ideally, look, actually, I probably should do a video on guilt in itself, but we've got to shift past guilt. Guilt is a major blocker. And so even if they can't forgive you, the important thing is that you are able to forgive yourself because you were growing, you made mistakes, okay? Life happens. I would cut the cords on that one for sure, so that you can't be guilted into anything anymore. Therapy might be something to consider. So speaking of therapy, the reason why this can be valuable if you can get a good therapist is because you can identify some of the issues that you're trying to work through and heal as well, as far as making the most of yourself for the future and not repeating patterns. And you might identify through this process of doing the cord cutting things like, you know, that you recognize that just aren't healthy. You know, am I assertive enough, for example? Did you go simpering in to say, you know, I want my heart back? Can you give me back my heart, please? You know, instead of just standing up there assertively, comfortably asking for your heart to be returned to you. Do you apologize for having your own or asking to have your own needs met? Did you go into that exercise saying, you know, look, I'm really sorry to do this, but I'd like my heart back, please? Right? So do you apologize? Just to have your own needs accommodated? Do you have boundary issues? You might start recognizing, I need to pay attention to boundaries. I need to build them and I need to maintain them, and I need support to do that. You know, you can also identify what relationships am I actually struggling with and to let go of, and why is that? You know, is it necessary to maintain or to keep a connection to these people that are potentially treating you badly and devaluing you? It might be a case of, okay, I'm not prepared to let them go, but what can I do to make these relationships healthy? Getting some support around that. You might start to recognize that you have a level of emotional dependence and you're not comfortable about it. It might not feel good. So you want to might, oh my God, what is happening with my words? You might want to build some emotional independence, and there's any number of observations that you might make about yourself through the process, within it and after it, because this is about raising your own self-awareness as well. Now, just a little word of caution here, and once again a reminder, I'm going to be putting the link to the friendship and circles, is that if you do decide to share the information that we're talking about here today, this is actually the innermost workings of your heart. Okay, this is your areas of vulnerabilities. So whoever you share this information with and your questions of what can I do, in the absence of a therapist, you want to make sure for your own sanity and preservation, if you like, that you only share this content with a very trusted friend. Okay, and it would be even better if that trusted friend knows their limitations, because even if they don't know the answers, because a friend can sit there and listen to you talk about stuff, but they might not have the answers, they might not have solutions, and they might recognize that actually you need some help with this. But a good friend, I perceive, is one that will turn around and say, I don't know. I don't know how to help you. I wish that I did. Do you mind if I go and ask somebody for some advice on what options might be there for you to work through this? Just a little point here as well. When we talk about disclosures, I would be really interested to hear the results for people and whether or not it was beneficial for them, if they enjoyed these activities. But at the same time, I want to remind you all that anything that you put on the wall as a comment, it's a public forum, so be very discreet about what you put up. Don't over disclose, because you want to protect your own confidentiality and those of the people around you. I will, on this Sunday Yarning, be speaking about narcissist abuse, but not in any great detail, because I don't see the point in dwelling on the negative stuff. But I have found some resources out there on YouTube that I think would be quite beneficial for people, and there's a real lot of stuff out there that I consider to be not particularly helpful. So I want to give people some leads so that they can conduct their own education and exploration for themselves, particularly if they're recovering from CPTSD and PTSD and surviving narcissism. Now, just a reminder, what you can do in between times for your own self is make a commitment to your own health and well-being, to be your own carer. Now, we'll just look at this briefly. So the reason why you would want to be making a commitment to your own self and self-care is because actually when you are vibrating low before you've done your recovery, so when we talk about healing, we're talking about increasing the light, remember, raising the vibration. It's because, remember the spiritual laws, there is a magnetic thing there, like attracts like. So if you are in this space of not trusting people, feeling vulnerable, down, beaten, and all the rest of it, what you will do until you heal is actually draw those kind of characters to your aura, because energetically you're sending that out. You're seeking to confirm where your aura is currently at. I guess that's a little bit out there for people. I'm trying to think of a better way to phrase it. Just like attracts like. If you want to have a change, you've got to change yourself. This is why that change yourself first is so important, right? You've got to raise your own vibration, change your attitudes. That can be about your self-worth. Recognize that you are deserving. You deserve to be treated well. And when your confidence comes in, you're going to draw more respectful people to you, right? Like attracts like. You will attract people that have respect for you and vice versa, because you're respecting yourself. So we make a commitment to ourselves. The first part of committing to self is acknowledging, actually, there is a physiology to trauma. So you might find that you, even though you've done this activity today of reclaiming your heart and you've done the cord cutting, you might find yourself in the future thinking about that person again. But the healing process can be staggered, right? So the moment you find yourself thinking about that person, you quickly do a visualization exercise, cut the cords, cut the cords, cut the cords, right? Because, and this is the important bit, when you think, there is a potential that it's going to bring that person's energy back to your aura, at least on a energetic level, because thought acts kind of like an etheric telephone line, if you want. It sends out, it transmits to that person. And I guess not everybody has had this experience, but I certainly have. And I know I'm not the only person to have had this experience where there becomes a connection, where probably because I've got, or I've developed it, what I have noticed in all of my close relationships anyway for many years now is that if they think of me, I automatically will call them. And within these really strong, intimate relationships, I have had that connection with all of my loved ones, shall we say. Yeah, they can think of me, they phone me, or whatever, vice versa. Okay. And that can be, I can be asleep at the time and I will be bolt upright, and then the phone will ring and it will be them, or vice versa. Yeah, it's all a bit complex, and I don't think my mind's working too well at the moment. I keep stumbling. That's probably because I've been doing so much content over the last week, so I apologise. I'm just trying to get it all through for January 1st to give everybody a really good start to 2024. So anyway, the point I was trying to make is, if you think of them, just repeat the exercise. What you will observe the more you do this cord cutting is that the cords will get thinner and thinner, and eventually they won't occur. And the other thing is too, that every time you do this cord cutting exercise, make sure that you sever the ends, tie the ends so that they can't become hooks again in the future. And you may even want to do a chakra cleansing or a purification exercise afterwards. So, my friends, I think that's about all I can give you for today. So, until Sunday, I say take care, stay safe, be blessed. I'll be back in the new year with specific content for you. Actually, I've got the Sunday yarning. I'll have a little bit of content and information up there. So until Sunday, catch you then. Stay safe. Bye-bye.